I went to the JSC She Invests event, and there were things that I learned there that quite literally altered my brain chemistry. I kid you not. So the first thing that I learned there, right, was, I remember this was Bonang saying this. She said, prepare for where you are going, not where you are, right? And it made me realize that in my own life, there was so many things that I was doing that was just for now, instant gratification, that were just for comfort right now, but weren't necessarily aimed at where I am going, right? And now the thing is, she said, channel your intention towards where you're going. So I realized that for the most part, there was a lot of questions that I was not actively and constantly asking myself about where I am going. And we all tend to do this every now and then. For example, things like, where I'm going, I'm a lot more financially liberated. And also, where I'm going, guys, I have a will. Where I'm going, I have an investment plan. Where I'm going, I know. I know so much about my money. And right, it made me realize that I was being so passive, absolutely passive about what I am doing, right? It all had to do with what's happening now, prepare for where you are going. And she spoke about it in a matter of how you walk, how you talk, how you eat, how you breathe, how you speak. Everything about you needs to emulate where you are going, who you are in that moment. No, it has to emulate where you are going, not where you currently are. And now this takes me into just the teachings of Neville Goddard, because he does talk about how basically people on the outside just see a seed, but you on the inside need to quite literally have blossomed. You need to see a tree. Where other people see a seed, you see a tree. You need to live in quite literally the fulfillment of who you are. You need to already be it. And if you are it, then you will act like it. And when you act like it, then you will have things that are a direct reflection and correlation of a person who is it. The second thing that I learned was confidence comes from competence. I do already know this, to an extent. You are more confident the more you know, right? You are more confident in your financial decisions the more you know of your financial decisions. You are more confident in terms of business, in terms of business deals, in terms of negotiation, the more you know your value. Confidence comes from competence. So many people, and I realize that when I say confidence comes from competence, it does not only mean just get the qualification for the thing. Know who you are. Because I realized that with so many of the women there were so many absolutely educated women there, right? Who absolutely have all the belts in the world, quite literally. And there were also women there who are entrepreneurs and who don't have half of the qualifications that the women with all the belts have. However, those are the women that we look up to. Those are the women whose businesses we are inspired by. Confidence comes from competence, and by that, I don't just mean learning new things, but knowing, quite literally knowing your power, quite literally knowing the power of God, quite literally knowing the power of faith. Knowing. Confidence comes from knowing. There's a difference between believing something. For example, seeing this click slip thing, right? I can believe that it's pink, but I know that it's pink. Which one holds more power in the brain? Which one holds more power as far as your brain chemistry is concerned? Confidence comes from competence. Now, the third thing that I learned was that for most women, financial freedom is not a priority. It's just like a secondary thing. you know. So many women treat financial liberation as a thing that is entirely circumstantial and as a thing that just springs up on you. And that's why people who, when you think of a woman who's financially liberated, you think of some businesswoman who's so out of your reach and so outside of you. So many women do not treat financial freedom as a priority. What does that look like? That looks like, for example, your investment accounts are not on a debit order type of basis. If anything, you invest what's left, if there is anything left, because most of the time there's hardly anything left. But financial freedom is not a priority in so many women's lives. It's just circumstantial. And I realized that the more energy and the more focus that you direct to a specific output, the more you are likely to get that specific output or get a close proximity of that output. So for example, let's say a million rand, right? My aim is R1 million, right? How many times do I have this, I'm trying to get to 1 million by the end of the year conversation in my head? If I have it once, if I have it in January and I'm like, yeah, at the end of the year, I want to have R1 million. If I have that conversation with myself in January and then I just never go back in, and then in June, I'm like, oh yeah, I said 1 million, right? My energy is it's not strong. It's not strong. Whereas if I set the intention of, okay, in January, I'm like, I need 1 million by the end of the year. And I have this conversation with myself as constantly as I possibly can. I set meetings with myself daily or weekly about this R1 million plan. It if anything, I am more likely to get to 1 million than if I'm just very willy-nilly about it. If anything, most women set things as a priority. Is the things that they set as a priority are things that other people tell them are a priority, not things that they tell themselves are a priority. And financial freedom is a priority because finances and money buys you choices, money buys you options, which then leads me to my next point. Next point is, there was this lady there that spoke about how you should have a fuck you fund. And basically, what a fuck you fund is, it's outside of the money that you pay for your utilities and all of that. It's outside of your maintenance money. It's outside of your emergency fund. It's outside of absolutely everything. This is money that you're quite literally going to use in a moment where you think, you know what, I'm done with this situation. Be it that job, leaving that job, be it leaving that marriage, be it leaving whatever it is. A fuck you fund, right? So it's outside of your emergency, just in case your car breaks down type of money. It's outside of that. This is money that you're quite literally using and putting aside to buy you options. And now obviously there comes the question of, okay, but I can't afford to have a fuck you fund yet. I for one can't afford to have a fuck you fund yet. Be it as it may, that's where you actually have to start now with getting your finances in order, in the sense of, for as long as debt is concerned, you should not have debt. You should be actively working towards buying your power back, right? So after actively working towards buying your power back, you need to have a certain amount of money that is outside of the emergency fund, outside of everything, money that you can just look at, money that is just there, money that you just know is there. So, for example, what does that look like? For example, you have 2,000 Rand, right? There's a 2,000 Rand that you maybe keep in your room. That 2,000 Rand, right? You don't use it or anything, but it is just there. Not as a backup, but as a confidence booster, because you show up different. You genuinely show up different when you know that you actually have money, not that you need the money, but you show up different. You are more confident and you are more decisive the more you know that, okay, I have money. So that's a really nice exercise that I also started doing, and it makes me feel a lot more secure. Not that I ever need the money, but it makes me feel secure. And for my final point, which was quite literally a hard pill to swallow, Just because you can does not mean you should. Guys, I struggle with this one. Just because you can buy it does not mean you should buy it, right? And now that's where discipline comes in. And I think it's a matter of making discipline a lot easier. What do I mean by this? For example, make for example, let's say the goal is financial freedom, the goal is financial liberty, maybe the goal is even saving more, right? What does that look like? That looks like having a fridge full of groceries so that you have options. That's for one, that's for certain. Second thing is, maybe let's say Sundays you have a financial meeting with yourself. Saturday night, having your journal, having your calculator, heck, I don't know, having your journal or whatever set at your table ready for you Sunday morning. Or maybe having your vision board somewhere you can see. You need to prime your environment for discipline. You need to prime your environment for commitment. You need to prime your environment for something that you are going to do, you know. So discipline is a big one. But yeah, there is so much that I learned there. There's a lot that I learned there. But I think for the most part, I love events like that. I love events that empower women. I love events that inspire women. I feel absolutely inspired. And it made me feel like I really do want to take my power back as far as my finances are concerned. I want to be more intentional, about that relationship that I have with my finances, because I was very passive. I want to be a lot more intentional as far as it goes. But yeah, it's not all I learned, but I hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one.